What's up guys, welcome back to FishOfHex. My name is Travis. In today's video we're going to talk all about the flow here in the 300 gallon reef. Now I did do a similar video when I originally set up the system about a year and a half ago, and since I've made some changes not only with increasing the flow but also with the programming between the Apex and the Jabos, I figured I'd go ahead and give you guys an update and really go in depth on why I do what I do with the amount of flow and my thought process behind everything with a fully stocked SPS tank. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and get started. Now I do want to mention that my thought process behind all the flow and the way it's set up has to do with my bare bottom tank. Now if you have sand in your system, you can still do what I do, you just probably don't want to go to the percentages and the extreme that I do, because you'll probably cause a sandstorm and then you'll have to deal with the issues from that. Okay, so let's go ahead and first talk about the type of power heads, their location, and the flow rates. Now, when I originally set up the system, I had 4 WP60s. These are basically rated for about 5,000 gallons per hour when they're at 100%. Again, I had 4 of them. Now I only have 3. I've actually burned through 2 motors over the last year and a half, so I'm kind of disappointed with them, and I probably won't be buying any more, hence the reason why there's only 2 on one side and 1 on the other. Now, on the back, top, left, and right, I have the new PP20s, or 20 PPs, or whatever you want to call them. And basically, these are just like the WP60s. They're 5,000 gallons per hour, but they pull or push a lot more flow, it seems, than the original WP60s. So I went ahead and put those, again, at the top and the right. And then we have a WP60 at the bottom left, and then the middle left, and then we have a bottom right WP60. Now, we are missing that flow on the middle right, but again, it's going to be fine with the amount of flow that we have. It's really not going to make a big deal. Plus, a lot of the acropora in that middle rock structure were getting slammed by the original WP60, and they were starting to kind of bend away from the flow, so it's not a bad thing that it's no longer there. Okay, now that you guys know where the power heads are located, let's go and talk about the reasoning behind those specific locations. Now, when it comes to the bottom left and bottom right WP60s, their jobs are simply to move detritus off the bottom of the tank, lift it up into the water column, allowing it to be overflown into the filter socks and basically cleaning the tank. That's really their only purpose, and when we talk about surge modes later, you'll definitely see what I'm talking about when it comes to how much they lift up off the bottom of the tank. Alright, now when it comes to the top left and top right PP20, those 2 power heads are just on consistently for the sole reason of just making sure there's continuous flow in the tank, and it really helps with any kind of dead spots. It just adds a nice swirling motion within the system. Now I did, when I first got these, I did put them in different locations to see how much power they had, and they were kind of a little overkill for this tank in the location, say, where the right WP60 is. If I was to put one of those PP20s there, it would just be too much, and it was starting to stress out the acro. So I figured putting them up at the top, right, and left will allow them to kind of flow towards each other, meet in the middle, and then spread out, adding a spiral effect into the tank. And I've been doing that for about a month and a half now, and they've worked out really well. Now moving on to our last power head to the top left hand side, which is that WP60. Now again, that one is there simply to add cross flow around the tank. Now I did temporarily put the WP60s on the back wall to kind of push flow forward. It didn't work out well, and honestly it looked really weird when I did side shots of the tank when I wanted to see the coral. You just had this giant power head sticking out. Now, if I do ever plan on adding flow on the back wall like I did with the old 125, I'm probably just going to do MP40s or MP60s just because it is less visible and I can still enjoy the acros without having this giant power head sticking out. Okay, now that we've talked about the location, the reason behind that location, let's go ahead and talk about my thought process when it comes to flow in a reef tank. Now, if you have an SPS dominant system like mine, the more flow, the better you're going to be. The purpose of flow in an SPS reef tank is not only to provide food for the coral, but to also clean the corals. Now, when I'm doing water changes, I always like to take a power head and kind of do the bubble scrubbing on the colonies. That's always fun. I used to do bubble scrubbing before, and I probably will implement it at some time on this tank. But I like to use the flow to really clean the corals. It really helps to get the detritus off. Sometimes there's dead spots in the middle of the Montipora cap. You know, it's just good to have that additional flow to just get that stuff up. And again, getting it into the overflow down into the filter socks is pretty much my main goal with all of this flow. Now, another reason behind having a lot of flow and a lot of different types of flow is that it actually builds stronger acropora. I've noticed that when I have a coral that's in a really high flow tank, it grows thicker, stronger bases. In turn, the colony can grow bigger, and when the fish come through and hit it, it doesn't knock the entire colony down, it just knocks off a piece here and there. So having that additional flow allows the coral to kind of build up its strength against the flow, allowing it to be overall a stronger, healthier acropora. Now, my last reason behind having a lot of flow is for the fish. I like the fact that they swim against it. It gives them a little bit of resistance, allows them to build up strength and be stronger and have the exercise, because these type of fish in the wild are swimming into all sorts of currents. They're going all over the place and just really swimming a lot. When they're in a tank like this, they're just not getting, I would say, quote unquote, the exercise that they need to be healthy. So having that extra resistance and that additional flow that they like to swim against and really go that route, it just feel that I have healthier fish because of it. So that might not necessarily be true scientifically, but in my heart and my own believing, I think having a little fish gymnasium or fish treadmill in front of a powerhead is always good for their health. Okay, so now that we've covered all that, let's go ahead and talk about the connection, look at the programming and the reasoning behind the amount of flows, the percentages, and also why I have the surge wave in the tank. So first things first, the J-bows in this tank are connected to the J-bow to Apex adapter, which means that the Apex has a variable speed port that connects to one of the adapters, and then that goes out to two power heads. So one port has basically two speed variations that you can control two different power heads. Okay, so with that said, I do have an additional variable dimming module attached to cover everything else that I have on the tank, so it's not just off the main hub of the Apex. Now with that said, you guys notice that there's a lot of stuff off here. Don't worry about that. When I'm doing voice recording and all of that, I have turn off a bunch of stuff here in the fish room, even the exhaust fan, because it's just gonna be a bunch of obnoxious noise while I'm trying to record. So let's go ahead and look here at the variable speed ports. So we have the PP20s on the back top left and the back top right. So let's go and look at the programming. I'll go over the times and kind of the different types of wave profiles, and then we'll look at those profiles specifically. So right here we have in the morning between 0900 and 10 a.m. we have the PP20 dusk. Now, this is just going to affect those power heads at the top left and top right because those are the PP20s. The dusk wave. So that's going to be kind of a consistent, I think it's at, 40%. It just kind of slowly ramps up, wakes the fish up, and then when the lights are at, or they're 100% at 10 a.m., that's when the PP20 day kicks in, which is a consistent 60% from those power heads, and then it ramps back down to the 40%, and then at night, it's going to be at a consistent 30%. We'll look at those here in a second. Now, you guys can see here at the bottom, we have the surge wave. Now, I'll show you guys how to make this in a second. It's basically, I created an outlet, named it surge wave, and then I built a wave profile. So when that outlet kicks on via timer, which again, you guys will see in a second, it will kick that profile on, and then you'll have the surge mode. So with that said, let's go ahead and move over to the actual wave profile. So we're gonna first look at the dusk that we saw first. So really early in the morning, again, we're going to have a ramp up at a consistent 40%. It's not going to turn on or off or anything like that because our minimum intensity and our maximum intensity are the same. So it's going to stay consistent 40% in the morning, waking the fish up. Now moving on again to the PP20 day. This is a consistent 60% because we don't have any minimum or maximum. Now I did try having those two power heads pulse on and off, and to make that happen, you just make the minimum intensity 0. And what that did is it just caused too many waves in the tank, and I end up having water spilling out the side. So I just keep it at a consistent 60%, so I get the most bang for my buck for that. Now moving on to our night, this is where it comes down to a consistent 30%. Now when it comes to J-bow pumps, you don't want to get them below 30% continuously. So 30% is where you keep them at. You don't want them running at 10% or anything like that. It burns out the motors too early. I figured that out a long time ago when I was killing power heads in the 125. So a minimum consistency of 30%, but if you're pulsing, you can have it turn on and off. That's fine. Just don't let it run for very long under 30%. Now moving over here, we've covered everything with that. So let's go ahead and look at our flow time. This is that profile that I was telling you guys about. And this is the profile that you guys will see in the surge mode outlet. So what that means is that for 30 seconds, it's going to run at 100%. And then it's going to be off for 10 seconds because our minimum is 0. So when that surge mode kicks in, any power head who has that surge mode timer in it is going to run for 30 seconds at 100% and then off for 10 seconds. So let's go to move over to that outlet so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the surge wave outlet. I have it on off now because I don't want to kick it on before I make videos because it sends a bunch of detritus into the water and I can't, it just looks cloudy. So I keep it off usually in the morning before I make any videos. So right here, it's very easy to make an outlet. So what you can do is come over here and hit create. This is on the new Apex, by the way. You can add a virtual outlet, put the name, what you want in there. Okay, it will pop up. You'll come over here to the main screen. You'll pull it down from the top. And that's exactly what I did here. So what I have is a OSC timer. So every 480 minutes, it's going to kick on for 10 minutes and then be off. So that's what this timer means. You guys can copy that in if you want. Of course, set fallback is off. You don't want that kicking on any other time besides that. Now, you can even go a step further if you so choose. I don't really do it, but you can also put in here that you want it to be off during the night. Basically, you don't want your surge mode kicking on in the middle of the night, you know, scaring the shit out of your fish. So I've yet to put that in there. I'm probably going to do it towards the end of the video or just do it when I'm done with the video because it's kind of been on my list of to-dos, and since I'm making the content, I might as well do it. So that is the outlet timer. So to recap, let's go back into an actual program here at the PP60. So, or sorry, PP20s. We have the original timing for the programming, and then our outlet, when that kicks on every 480 minutes, it's going to activate that outlet, which is surge wave, which then in turn is going to activate the flow time type of profile, okay? And that will allow me to have that 100% on all the power heads. Now I have this output or this timer on all 5 power heads. The PP20s as well as the WP60. So every, I guess I think it comes out to like 8 hours, something like 8 or 9 hours. I didn't do the math. It kicks on all the power heads at 100% for about 10 minutes, that 30 seconds on, 10 seconds off for that 10-minute period. And that really picks up the detritus big time. And again, gets it up into the filter socks so it can be filtered out. So hopefully that wasn't too complicated. I didn't want to go too far in depth. I do have other videos on the channel, I believe underneath the Apex playlist, showing you guys specifically how to program that adapter from the Jabo. Now, I just want to do a quick run through so you guys knew what I was talking about and why I have the flow percentages the way they are, and specifically that surge mode. Now, if you guys are looking to upgrade your flow or increase your flow kind of like I have, I recommend that you go slow, specifically if you have an acropora tank. One thing that you might not realize is if flow changes drastically in an acro tank, you will kill off some acros, like those soft skin acroporas, those torts. They don't like a big change in flow. So if you're going to do any kind of adjustments, do it over, you know, a couple days or a week or two. Just go slow. That way you're not pissing off anything. Because I definitely noticed when I added those additional PP20 power heads, all of my corals were closed up for a couple days, and you know, I had it at a certain percentage. It was higher, and I lowered it down significantly, and then finally brought it back up to where it originally was over that time because the acros were pretty pissed off. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I hope that this kind of gave you an insight, my thought process behind flow and kind of why I do what I do. Now, if you have a tank that's not SPS, you don't need this kind of flow. This is specifically for those of you who have a bare bottom tank, who have a lot of SPS, and you just want to really hammer in there and really just get the most benefit from it. You kind of want to go my route. But if you have sand or you have an LPS or soft coral tank, just do what kind of flow makes the coral look happy, if that makes sense. Just provide the flow that corals seem to be open, fluffy, happy, and doing well. You don't need to get in there and start blasting them to their, you know, barely hanging onto the rock structure. You don't need to do that. Just kind of keep that in mind when you're making adjustments to your tank. So again, with all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something and got a good idea of what I do here in the fish room. So I'll see you guys later, and most likely we'll have a video out for you Friday. All right, later.